Okay, welcome to a little video on steering setup. This is probably one of the most misunderstood systems of setting things up. I see all kinds of strange radio settings just to try and get a car to drive straight down the track or turn the same left and right, and it shouldn't be that difficult. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the 4 steps to set your steering up. So the first step is we need to set the angle of the servo arm. The second step is we need to set the length of the steering link. The third step is to set your toe, and the fourth step is to set your total steering throw. So first off, we need to set this angle. Oh, before I go ahead, make sure before you start doing any of this that your toe links are exactly the same length on both sides, and that your dual rate is set to 100%. Okay, so now we need to set the angle of this arm. Now there's a number of ways you can do it. You can just eyeball it. You can just say, okay, that looks about right. I know from going through the geometry here that we need to have 3 millimeters of offset to get the same amount of servo movement turning left as we do turning right, because you want that, because then you have the same number of steps. These digital servos move in steps, so most of them are 2048 steps, so you don't want it moving, say, 800 steps in one direction and 1,000 steps in the other direction. That's going to hurt your steering accuracy. So how do we do that? So we could just eyeball it. We could get a square or something that we could put up against here and then try and measure the offset with calipers. Or if you're lucky enough to have a 3D printer, you can make a little jig that'll make your life a lot easier. So this is just a little thing I made up to allow us to set the offset here as accurately as possible. So it just registers in the hole in the servo saver, and the bottom surface here is set so that it'll sit on the chassis, so that gives us our correct plane, and then the servo can still move. So I'm going to go ahead and install this, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we've got our little jig installed here. The way this works is this vertical tab here is directly in line with the center of the servo mounting screw. So if we have a 6 millimeter shim here, so half of that is 3 millimeters. So when we have the shims just touching this, then we've got our 3 millimeter offset. So I'm just going to back this off a bit. So we've got a gap between the two of them. You can see that gap there now, I think. If I put some light on the subject, you can see we got a gap there. So now I just need to keep adjusting this down until we get to okay. That looks like about it. Okay, so now you can see that the gap is 0. There's no gap between the shims and this vertical little jig, and that gets our 3 millimeter offset set as close as we can possibly get it. Okay, so moving on, next we're going to adjust the length of this linkage between the servo arm and the steering rack. So we're right back. Okay, so I've reinstalled the screw in the servo, so the servo arm, servo saver is securely attached to the servo. So now we want to set this link length. And to set that, we want to make sure that the steering rack is in the middle. You can see here that the driver is offset from the center of the slot in the top deck, and you can also see looking down here that the rack is not centered. So we just use our link there to adjust that, and I also made a little tool to make this better. Gotta love 3D printers, they're so much fun. So this just fits in here. There's a little tab here that fits into the slot in the top deck, so you know everything is lined up. So when I put this down, you can see that it's not in the middle, so I need to make some adjustments. So we're going to start adjusting this link to, let's try 3 turns. And it's almost fitting, but not quite. Do another 1/4 turn. And there, now it fits. Fits perfectly. The driver is completely vertical, so we know we're bang on. You can also just get above it and look down and just double check to make sure that the rack itself visually looks like it's centered, but that should be 100% accurate. Okay, next I'm going to install the setup system, and we'll set our front toe. Okay, so now we're going to check our front toe. But before we do that, we're going to sort of do a little verification to make sure that our previous step was correct. So I'm showing right there with slop removed, just a little over 1/2 degree of front toe out. So I'm going to switch this around the other way, and we'll see what we've got on the other side. So if we did our job right, because all our links are the same length and everything, we should have, and this is in the center, then we should have the same on the other side, but we don't. We're about 1.5 degrees, so our link here is out a little bit. We could adjust this by adjusting our toe links, but then we'd end up with unequal length toe links, so we don't want that. What we want to do is have our toe links exactly the same and get this back in the center. So I'm just going to put a 1/4 turn on that. And of course, never fails, went the wrong way. Okay. So there we got about 1 degree on that side, and we'll just flip around and make sure that we got about the same on the other side. And we do. Okay, so now if we wanted to adjust our toe, now we would adjust our toe using our toe links, because we know everything else is centered and aligned. We don't want to be ending up with different length toe links. Otherwise you end up with the car steering differently one way than the other. So that's it for setting up toe. Now we're going to go on to setting up steering throw. Okay, so we're at the final step now. We're going to set our total steering throw. You can see that we've got the steering throw gauge installed. We're reading about 1 degree of toe out, which is what we set on the previous step. You just adjust this gauge, it just slides this way until you get the number to match what you set previously. Using this guy, the camber and toe gauge. So now I'm going to set my steering throw. So I've backed off my steering throw limits, And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sneak them up to the value that I need. Now I always adjust the outside tire because that is the one that does the most of the steering, plus the inside tire is the one that's going to have more slop in it, which is going to make your settings less accurate. Okay, so away we go here. I'm going to move this up. I know I need about 23.5 degrees. So let's see where we get there. Okay, so that's about 23.5. So now we're going to spin it around the other way. Set the other side. Okay, so we got about 23.5 there. Okay, so here's a good example of why you don't want to use your outside. You can see there I got 2 degrees of slop, whereas if I go to the inside, I've got less than a degree of slop. So you're much better off setting the the outside tire than the inside tire. It's going to give you much more consistent results. Okay, so the only thing left to do here is I just want to check and see what I've got for total steering throw. I got 30 degrees there, 23.5 there. And we'll just spin this around and we'll check on this side. It should be the same. So there we got 31, 23, 23. Yeah, when I take it over at 23.5. Okay, so 30.5 there, 23.5 there, close enough. All right, so that's it. So now you can see my values. I'm only 3% difference between the left and right steering throw, so that's good. That's it. Hope this helps somebody out.